If you've ever been a member of a gym for an extended period of time, you're bound to have come across some of the issues and frustrations associated with being a gym member. In today's video, we're going to be looking at some of those frustrations in detail, looking at what you can potentially do about them, and why they're predominantly your fault. So, let's pull up a chair and talk it through. Well, hey there, and thanks for joining me in this latest video in a series of videos of the gym paradox, the pros and cons of joining a gym. If you haven't seen any of the previous videos in this channel, then you can check them out at your leisure. There's quite a few to choose from. And as always, I will leave a link in the description down below to the original piece of content up on DCSfit.com, from which all of these videos are based. And while you're down there, if you wouldn't mind, as always, hitting that thumbs up button, it really does make a difference. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, then why not? Just hit the subscribe button and you'll be able to see all the future content that goes up as and when it goes up. And if you want to see it immediately, then hit that notification bell and you should get notifications straight to your mobile device. Or don't do any of that. Just watch the video and hopefully it's helpful. So in today's video, we're talking about gym issues and frustrations and why predominantly they are the fault of the members. Now that might seem a little bit strange, but bear with me, I will explain. These frustrations are issues that have been around for a long time. They're very commonly associated with gyms. And if you've ever been in a gym, you're bound to have experienced one or two of them. Even if you haven't personally, you're bound to have heard somebody complaining about them at some point. I'm going to go through some of the more prevalent ones. I may miss a few, so if I've missed any, please feel free to leave some in the comments down below. We'll maybe try and address them in future videos, or I can update the article and start including a few more as well. But the reason for doing this video is to try and give a view as to what we can do about them, what we as members of gyms can actually do to make a difference and try and stop these things from happening. So let's kick off with one of the most obvious frustrations that people find when they go into most commercial gyms. It's too busy and you can't get a hold of the equipment that you need in order to execute the plan that you walked in with. Now, I mentioned this in previous videos already, particularly in the disadvantages of joining a gym video, and also I think in the budget gym videos, but it's such a prevalent frustration for most people that it's really worth addressing again. When you walk into a gym, you probably walk in with a plan. You might have written something out that you're going to do that day. You've maybe got a plan that's structured out for months to come, and you've got a sequence of what you want to be doing. And then you walk in and you find that the piece of equipment that you need is being used by someone else. And obviously, that's just going to throw you off your game because you went in with a plan, you're ready to go, and the very first thing you want to do, you can't do. Or even if you do get into it and you get the first couple of exercises done and now you need a piece of equipment and someone else is using it, but there's also someone else waiting for it, and you just know you're not going to be able to get on that piece of equipment, whether that be something as simple as a set of dumbbells that are the right weight for you, or a barbell or a squat rack, or if it's something a bit more complex like a piece of machinery, or even if it is just literally a cross trainer, a treadmill, a rowing machine, something like that. It's rarer for those things to be so busy that you can't get on them, but it does happen from time to time, especially if there's quite a few of them out of order and if it's at a peak time of the year. So that's obviously a frustration. It's a frustration that I think most people feel at some point in their training career. And as I mentioned in the previous videos, one of the reasons that I get frustrated with this is because the model is set up in order to ensure that that happens, because most people work that sort of 9 to 5 shift pattern. I mean, it might not be exactly that, but people tend to want to go into the gym before work or after work. People who've got families tend to want to spend time with their families at the weekend, so the weekends tend not to be quite as busy throughout. But then people who don't have families will then find that that's the time that they want to go to the gym. But uh, the thing is that if you've got a job, you're likely to want to come in before work or after work, or if you happen to live near the gym, maybe at lunchtime. And so it's just going to sort of funnel everybody in the membership into those zones. So as the membership gets bigger and bigger and bigger, when there's no controls being put on it to make sure that people can't come in droves, then you get into situations like this where people are just walking in and it is far too busy. Now, why is that your fault and not the gym owner's fault? Well, I've touched on this a little bit before as well. The thing is that the models are set up on what's going to be the most successful. So most gyms are created for the benefit of the bank balance to make the biggest profit possible. They're not really there to serve. And that's really a recurring theme in these videos. It's something I get incredibly frustrated about because that's not what the industry is supposed to be here for. We're supposed to be here to help people, to make a positive difference, not just to prey in people's emotions, prey in people's lack of self image and frustrations, take their money off them, and then give them more frustrations. And I find that frustrating. Now, as members, as long as we continue to put up with that, as long as we keep saying, "Yeah, this is okay. I'll keep paying a membership for that model," then they're going to keep doing it because it's an easy model to incorporate. You just keep selling. Then you just sell and sell and sell, and then as people go in and they get frustrated, some will leave, but they know there's another wave of people coming in and signing up, and unless that stops, unless we get to a point where people stop putting up with this, then that model is going to continue. So, yes, that is a frustration. Now, as far as managing it is concerned, in the short term, if that is something you're having to put up with, well, what I would kind of say is you've got two choices. You either stop putting up with it and you walk away. And that's kind of at the moment, my preferred choice because I just think something has to be done to ensure that this model stops. But if you want to keep training, and I'm sure a lot of people are in a position where they can't just suddenly train at home and there maybe isn't an alternative. If you're kind of stuck with it, then really the only way around this is an education to walk into the gym with more of a penciled idea of what it is you're going to do. I think the problem comes when people download things from the internet and they say, well, okay, you've got to do X, Y, and Z, and you're doing 3 sets of this and 5 sets of this, and you're supersetting these two things together as if this is some kind of alchemy that's been created that is going to just be the program. It is the program that is right, and it has to be done in this order, and it has to be done exactly in this kind of pacing and with this piece of equipment and what have you. And it doesn't really work like that. Ultimately, you're training your body, and you're training your body for a result, and you need to put your body through challenges and stimulus in order to make it adapt and grow. And if you know what it is that you're trying to get out of this program, then you can adapt a lot more easily. So, educating yourself is obviously going to be a big thing when it comes to trying to navigate these things. The second frustration is one that I've mentioned in previous videos as well, but not so much, is the staffing issue. So, you're looking around and you need help. Obviously, in the first instance, if it's so busy and you don't know what you're doing, maybe you're going to look around and expect to see a fitness instructor or a personal trainer, some kind of fitness professional that can come and help you out. Now, the problem is obviously if it's that busy, then there's going to be quite a few people looking for the services of the one person that's potentially on that gym floor at the time. The only people that are likely to be there in addition to that are personal trainers who are looking to try and sell a service to you. And well, that's a bit of a nervy one for a lot of people because some PTs are very helpful. Some PTs are not going to help unless you're willing to pay them. And they might help you in the first instance, but if you don't look like you're going to convert into a client, then they're not going to give you much time of day. And again, that's unfortunate because the whole point of this industry is that we're here to give assistance to people. That's what's supposed to be the driving force for being in this industry in the first place. But it's just a reality. They're just looking at it as in, well, this is my job. You want me to help you, then pay me. Despite the fact that they weren't doing anything anyway. So they're just standing around looking for a potential client and actually just helping you out should at least be making them feel good. At least it's a good use of their time rather than standing in a corner somewhere. So there is that. But again, it's that same issue where The reason it becomes the member's fault is because we're willing to put up with it. Walking into a gym facility where there isn't enough staff and not questioning that before you join is the thing that's allowing them to keep doing it. So you walk in and you're told, yes, we've got personal trainers that are on hand on the gym floor at all times. Now, that could be true, but then when you actually get into the gym, what you find is that the personal trainer is there, one of them. They might have a break or something that they have to go on if they're hired by the facility. So they might not always be there. Maybe they've got stuff that they're supposed to be doing. So quite often personal trainers are hired by the facility, and actually what they end up becoming is glorified cleaners. So they've got treadmills to clean and bikes to wipe down and benches to clean and weights to put away and all that kind of thing. And these are things I'm going to come back to later too. Um, so they're busy. They're doing the thing that they've been told to do, and if they don't do it, they're worried that well, their employer is now not going to be particularly happy. So they're not going to spend a whole lot of time with you there either. So voicing this to the facility to be able to let them know this is what I'm not happy about. But then to what end? If you just keep complaining, then they're going to say, oh, okay, but you're all still paying your membership. So we're happy to take that on board, but we're making enough money. So why change anything? Why would we, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? But if it looks like it's broken and people are getting so annoyed with it that they're actually leaving or not signing up in the first place because they're asking these questions when walking through the door, then perhaps the model will change. Another one could be that you can't get a locker. That all the lockers are taken up. Again, that goes back to it being too busy, but it might not be at the point where you walk through the door. So it depends partially on the policy of what is the locker policy. Can people come in the morning? I used to be in a gym where this happened a lot, where people would come in the morning and they would get changed in the gym, and they maybe even have a shower there and then go to work. They hadn't actually used the gym, but they just come in the morning and now they've put the stuff in a locker knowing that they're coming back at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and the stuff's already stored and it's ready to go. Plus, they've reserved the locker. This is kind of, I suppose, the British equivalent of being on holiday and expecting the. I'm not sure what the normal cliche is these days. It used to always be the Germans would be down and put their towels down on the beach, or the Italians would be down. And pick your stereotype, but it's the equivalent of that. It's the going on holiday, and you find that all the loungers around the pool or all the loungers down at the beach are all taken, despite the fact there's no one there because there's people getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to put their towels down and just reserve their place and then coming down at 12 o'clock. It's the same thing in the gym, except it's lockers. And again, you could go back to the fact that there's a policy in place here by the gym. Now, they might say that the policy is that you can't hang on to that locker, but are they doing anything to enforce it? And if you just sort of complain to yourself or don't really say anything, or you complain, but then you keep going, they're not going to change anything. You see the theme that's coming on here. It's that this is why it becomes the member's fault, because if you're willing to put up with it, and it's too much of an inconvenience to them to do something about it, it's not going to change. Think about what has to happen in order to make sure that everyone empties their lockers as they leave. Essentially, you're at that point then where every single person that comes out, you're going in and checking have they emptied their locker. How would you know which one's which? So unless you start putting another policy in where you have a specific key and then you have to hand it back, as you're leaving the building, so that they know that that one is now empty. Maybe that's a potential policy, but having it something where people just walk in and they put a pound in or something, and now they can lock it. Well, so what? You're going to get your pound back at some point. So I do know that quite a lot of gyms check them overnight. So they'll check them last thing before they close to make sure that everything is empty. And if they're ones with like padlocks and stuff on them, they'll go in with bolt clippers and clip the bolts off and then just empty the stuff and throw it into lost property or throw it in the bin or something. So overnight is one thing, but if you're going in at 6 o'clock and all the lockers are full, and that's happening frequently, well, you need to do something about it. And it has to be something that's tangible. And the only tangible thing really is to threaten to leave. Um, and if it's only one of you, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But if it starts happening in the hundreds, then it's going to make a difference. Okay, the next one is one that gets frustration on both sides of the fence, I believe, especially based on what I see on social media feeds, which is people not putting their weights back properly. Now, this has been a bugbear of mine for many years before I owned my own gym. Then, when I owned my own gym, because of the model we had, it didn't happen or almost never happened. It was incredibly rare. But prior to that, all the gyms I'd been in before opening my own place. It always happened, and it must still be happening because the number of gyms that I see that their Instagram feed or their Facebook feed or whatever, their social media feed is literally every third post saying, put your weights back. Put your weights back or you'll be barred. Put your weights back or you'll be fined. Put your weights back. Think of the next person. Treat your gym the way that you would want to treat your home, or all these things that start going out on social media. It is clearly a frustration of the gyms themselves. They tend to come more from places that are owned by an individual. So you're looking at boutique style gyms rather than chain gyms, because I don't think they would make that kind of a distinction. They don't want to make the noise to the public. But when you own the place and you're finding that people are coming in and just leaving their stuff everywhere, then it can get frustrating. So this is one where there's a bit of a balance here because, again, they set the model and they are getting the frustrations. So they want the money by having lots of people in that are to a level that they can't control, but at the same time, they're now complaining because they're not respecting the venue in front of them. And it's usually a minority of people. It's not everyone, but it's enough people to be a frustration. And when you're going to get, you need a 2.5 kilo weight plate, but it's behind 6 20 kilo weight plates, which I have had happen to me on the rack. There's, the one that you need, you've got to move 120 kilos worth of weight just to get this small plate that you need to be able to put on a bar. I've seen that happen. Or you go back to the dumbbell rack and you go, because they're going up in 2 kilo increments, say, and it's going 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So you walk over to where the 20s are because that's what you need, and they're not there. But all the dumbbells are there in that kind of zone, but where the 20s are, there's a set of 24s. And now you've got to try and fathom out where in this rack and work your way through people to find the dumbbells that you actually need, if they're there at all. Because you don't know, maybe somebody's got them, but because things aren't put back in the right order, in the right sequence, it's impossible to tell. Then there's the ones where it becomes heavier weights. If a gym does have the luxury of going up to 60, 70 kilo dumbbells, and then somebody lifts them, but then just leaves them. So now what's anybody else supposed to do? Because maybe the next person coming along can't lift those things, so how they can't put them away. So if you're not strong enough to put them away, you're not finished your workout. So I will say that there is definitely an emphasis here on saying that members are very much to blame on this. But at the same time, if you're in a venue where this is being allowed to happen and all the owners are doing is complaining about it on social media, then it's still not, they can change the infrastructure, but everybody's just sort of putting up with it. And it's, oh, you're complaining about, yeah, you're not happy about it, that you have to put them away. Yes, we can see that you're annoyed, so that's okay. Not really. It's still interfering with your workout. So make them do something about it. And they will do if it's going to affect their bottom line. Because yeah, that might be frustrating for those one or two things. But if they reduced the number of members that were allowed in at any given time, they'd be able to see what was going on a lot better. Then they'd be able to see who was doing it. We had it written into our contract. If somebody didn't put their weights away, we would give them a warning. And if they did it a second time, they would be fined £5. So their membership would go up by £5 the next month, just for that month. But then if they did it again the next month, it'd be up by £5 again. So, and if they weren't happy with that, they could always leave. That was the concept. It never came to fruition because we never allowed more than 7 people in the building. So you've got nowhere to hide. So and there was occasionally somebody would come in and it was their first time in, and then they would go to put their weights away and they would put them back just anywhere. But that they probably be them, me, maybe one other person, and I would either see it happen or I would see that the weight had gone back to the wrong place, and I would just go over and say, "Oh, did you put this here? No, it actually goes over here." I was quite bad with it, I have to say. Like I said, I am a bit OCD, so even if there were two plates that were a different color, we had orange 5 kilo bumper plates or bumper size plates, and grey ones. And if they weren't symmetrical on the rack or on a bar, I couldn't even look. People had done the right thing. It's still 5 kilos, so it shouldn't matter, but it mattered to me, so I just couldn't look at them. But that's my problem. Then we've got administration issues and frustrations. Things like unreasonable charges, like sign up fees, or unreasonable contract terms. So, for example, in South Africa, I mentioned South African gyms in a previous video, but I didn't bring this up. But there are gyms in South Africa where they tout 3 year contracts. 3 years. And I know this one because my wife was a member of, it was a Virgin Active, where she'd signed up to a 3 year contract. But then a year into it, we met and she moved to this country. And then after 5 or 6 months, realized she wasn't going back and cancelled her membership. And they chased her. They chased her here. They chased her parents in South Africa for over a year. And the only way that she managed to get out of it was to go and join a Virgin Active in the UK on the provision that they would cancel the membership in South Africa. And that seems a pretty underhand way of dealing with things. It's not like she could do anything about her membership anymore. She wasn't going to commute to South Africa in order to be a member of that gym. So yeah, there's things like that as well. But then there's also inability to cancel your membership, whether you're out of contract or not. Sometimes it's just made incredibly difficult. So there's all of these frustrations that do come up from time to time when you are a member of certain gyms. And I am aware that, that again, I'm just going to name David Lloyd's is one where when you join, it's a 1 year contract, but then when you try to cancel, I think it's 90 days notice you have to give, which, I mean, really? That is an exceptional amount of time to have to give, especially if you've already been a member for over a year. I get the month. I understand that because, logistics and being able to plan your business model, but 90 days is incredible. And I think, to be honest, what that ends up doing with people is they just go, oh, forget it then. Because the thing they want to go and do is now so far away that they might as well just stick with where they are. And I get that's what the model is probably designed to do, to try and stop people canceling. But it's hardly in the spirit of betterment of the members and the people that they're trying to serve. You go in and you join. If you don't feel like they're delivering on what you need, you should be able to leave. So, yes, these are frustrations that are put upon the members by the facility. So, therefore, it could be construed as their fault. But again, the members are letting it happen. Normally, quite often, you get contracts as a lot of very small print that you don't read. You just sign these things. But if you walk in and ask the questions, look, if I wanted to, if you've told me that this facility, I'm going to walk in, and if I need a program, I'm going to get a program. If I need a spot, I'm going to get a spot. You've told me that you're not particularly busy at 6 o'clock, that I'll be okay and I'll be able to train. You've told me that I'll be able to get into classes. Whatever it is that's important to you, ask the questions. You've told me all of these things. If that proves not to be the case in a month's time or 2 months' time or whenever within my contract period, will I be able to cancel? And if they're not willing to do it, then why not? It's essentially now they're just trying to sell you on what looks good rather than what is good for you. They're selling you a false promise. And ultimately, it's a service based industry. I know I keep saying this. Therefore, it should be about the service. It's not just about having a membership to go into a building. And then whatever happens in that building, well, that's up to the members to work it out between themselves. So again, it does come back. We have to start taking some responsibility as the people that are making the decision to sign our bank details over to these venues. And when it comes to smaller places, or not smaller places, but cheaper places, where maybe they don't have long term contracts, a lot of the budget gyms don't, it's just month to month, but they are reliant on the fact that it's so cheap that you're not going to cancel. And because so few people do, then they just accept that that model works and everybody's happy with it. But I know some people that have said that they're happy with the model that they have, especially people who do like training at 4 a.m. or midnight or whatever. They're perfectly happy with it. They get the whole place to themselves, and um, nobody bothers them, and they just go in and they get on with their training, and they just wanted access to the equipment, and they happen to go in at strange times compared to most people. But all the people that got frustrated and now they're feeling intimidated about going back, but they keep thinking they're going to get themselves into that mindset again and they will get back, but they don't cancel. That's what's keeping this model going. If you want it to change, you need to change your approach to it. What all of this really comes down to is there is a difference between joining a gym and using a gym. When you go to join the gym, you go in for your tour and you look around and you're shown the best of that facility. Now, obviously, when it comes to tours and things, they can't make all tours happen at peak times because logistically they just wouldn't be able to do that because there's only one person or two people or three people available to do the tours, depending on the size of the venue. So they can't have 20 people coming in for tours. So they do need to try and spread them out as best they can. So that does make sense. But at the same time, by diverting you away from the time that you want to actually use the facility, you are now potentially going to see it in a better light. So, for example, if somebody says, "Oh, can you come back on Saturday and come in for your tour then?" Yeah, okay, you're probably free on a Saturday. It's only a one off. You're actually going to be able to use the gym at 6 o'clock through the week. But you just want a tour. So, yeah, this weekend I'll come in and I'll go for a tour. You walk in at 2 p.m. on the Saturday, you walk around. There's, 10 people in the entire building, but a building that could probably accommodate maybe two or 300 people. It looks empty. You get to see all the equipment, you get to see all the stuff that you need in your mind that you need in order to make progress. It's all there for you. And look, you have access to all of this for this small amount of money. You can access all of this. And then you ask about classes. Yes, there's classes on. There's classes on every day. There's 40 classes a week or whatever the number is that's on the timetable. Fantastic. That sounds great. If there's 40 on, I'm bound to be able to make two or three of them. And these all sound like positive things that are going to amp you up. And at this moment in time, remember when you're looking for a gym, when you're looking for a solution to how you're feeling, you're amped up about it. You feel like I'm making progress here. I'm going to do something. And you feel good about what you're about to achieve. And at that heightened state, you are so much more likely to sign up to something without truly investigating it properly. So when you're going in, try and go in with a philosophy of this is how I'm going to use the place. This is exactly what I want out of the place. And pose those questions. And don't be fobbed off with a quick one-liner answer or a political answer. As in being led so that you ask one question and the answer a slightly different question. So I do know, for example, I spoke to someone who did tours in a commercial gym, and there was the adductor and abductor machines, the inner and outer thigh machines, the ones where you sit and you move your legs in and out to push the weight away or push the weight in the way, and it's for your thighs. And when I was there, nobody was using them, but they had two of each. They had two adductor machines and two abductor machines, taking up a lot of floor space on the gym floor that could have been used for something a lot more valuable. And I put this to the sales team and I put this to the manager of the gym at the time. And the response I got was, "Yeah, but it's a good sales technique." Because a lot of women come in, and when we ask them what it is they want to do, they want to burn fat off their thighs. And we can point to that machine, and on the machine, there's a little diagram that shows you which area it works, and it shows you their thighs are the bit that gets worked. And if they use it, they'll feel a burn there as well. So we can say, yep, we've got exactly the piece of equipment that you need in order to be able to do what it is you want to do. And now they sign up before they realize that That is not a way to burn fat off your thighs. So uh, going in a bit more armed, prepared, and that's really the whole concept of trying to put out all these videos and that original piece of content, is to try and give people the idea that please forearm yourself before you walk in through the door. And you might even then decide, because you've educated yourself a bit, that you don't walk through the door in the first place. But by knowing what it is that you want to achieve, and in walking in, these things will stop happening. Because if enough people do it, if one or two people do it, it won't. And this is a little bit like, voting in an election. Oh, does my vote really count? What's one vote? But they all add up eventually. If enough people get on board with this, then the business models will have to change. The structures will have to change. There are some gyms that already have improved on the standard models, but they are so few and far between. Mostly the more bespoke gyms tend to just try and follow the same model as the bigger gyms on a smaller scale. Now they need fewer people to fill them up and make enough of a profit, but they're following the same model. Just sign up as many people as they can get away with, and an awful lot of it is based on price then at that point. And it does look better because you're saying, well, we've only got 300 members. That gym round the corner has got 7,000. So there's fewer people here. But the 300 people all turn up quite regularly, or 250 of them turn up quite regularly, and they're all turning up predominantly at the times that you want to train. It's still a problem. So unless that changes, the frustrations are going to continue. Now, from your side of it, what I would invite you to do is remember that your membership is a contract. You have your part to play here too. So, when it comes to all those admin things that I mentioned earlier, the long-term contracts, the sign-up fees, the cancellation fees, the difficulty in canceling, all these things, one of the reasons that these exist is because of the way that members quite often treat this contract. They treat it as if it's something that they have no responsibility in whatsoever. Now, this is something that I can definitely speak to as a gym owner, because before I owned a gym, I really was frustrated for other people. I would see people come in and their circumstances would change and they would need to leave for one reason or another. Maybe they were dealing with somebody in their family was incredibly sick, or a bereavement or something, or there was a lot going on at their work and they were in fear of losing their job, that kind of thing. And these were not acceptable reasons to break a contract, so it would seem. Um, and that just seemed to me as just despicable. However, then when you get into it and you open a place of your own, as I did, I started with the premise that I was going to trust everyone, and I was going to, if this wasn't for them, then so be it. They could come in, they could be a member for a while. If they didn't like it, they could just cancel. We had to set up with a direct debit company who did all our direct debits for us. We couldn't do them ourselves, and they required us to give them notice, or they would charge us extra, and they would charge us as if the fee had gone through, regardless of that person canceling their direct debit. And then after the first year, people were pretty good about it. I managed to speak to every single person, talk them through, and hardly anybody left. So I didn't notice anything. But then when we got into year two and we started to grow a bit, and there was other people there also dealing with members and trying to help us deal with this bigger animal that we had in front of us now, it became less that it was just dealing with a person and you were now dealing with a company. I think that's kind of what happened. The number of people who would cancel the direct debit the day before the direct debit was due to come out their bank, which was 10 days after the direct debit company had shut us off from being able to make any changes whatsoever. It was originally 15 days, and then they shortened it a bit towards the end. And so now we were getting charged as if that direct debit had gone through. Then we would get a notification saying that the direct debit hadn't gone through, and we would be charged to be receive that notification, and then we would be charged because of the failed payment. So we get charged three times for one missed payment, for which we were never getting the money. And after a year of that, I realized that it cost us over £3,000 in charges from all of these different things, including the lost revenue. So it cost us over £3,000 in unpaid invoices and charges and things like that. And we couldn't cope with that because we were such a small business. That was a lot of money to us. So it just gets to a point where now you're being pushed that you have to do something about it. And that's where we started introducing sign up fees and we also had little fobs that you could get in and out. And that was just to stop people having to wait at the front door, but to stop people just floating in and out as they felt like it. So it was a security thing more than anything. It wasn't a 24-hour facility where you could just fob in whenever you liked. It was just to stop people standing at the front door. And if it was raining, they could just get in and walk straight into the reception area. Um, so we would give out these fobs. Now, a fob costs about £10. It's got a little microchip in it. You've got to set it up and set up all the infrastructure, which costs a lot of money as well. And so we were giving these out and just said to people, look, we'll give you that, but can you please give it back to us so that we can reuse it if you do decide to leave? And again, people were not bringing them back. We must have went through maybe 100 of those things and never got any of them back until we started charging deposit fees or deposits for them. Then we started getting a lot more of them back. Still not all of them, but we got a lot more of them back. So yeah, it's one of these things that even when we were putting faith and trust in people, they were not reciprocating. So, what I'm saying here is that remember, when you sign to join anywhere, you are entering into a contract, and that contract has responsibilities on you as well as the service being provided by the facility. My feeling is if they're not living up to the service that they said they were going to provide, you should be able to leave whenever you want, and there shouldn't be an issue with it. But similarly, if you need to leave, follow the contract that you signed up to, because otherwise, they are going to have to start putting on charges and fees and everything, which they may already be there, but they're never going to take them away if people keep treating it this way. So, the people that are there for playing by the rules are then the ones that are being hampered by the people who just don't care and they only care about themselves. So have a think about that the next time you go to cancel a direct debit especially with a more bespoke company where it's just one person or two people running the show. Think of the pressure you're putting on them and what they're now having to do as a result of it, that puts now a financial onus on the other people who wouldn't have cancelled in the first place. So the upshot of all this is that businesses, in the end, respond to market forces. A business has to make money or it can't survive. So if the model that they are putting forth is not making them a profit, they will have to adapt or die. So if you therefore vote with your feet or vote with your wallet by not paying for things that are not living up to scratch, then the model will have to change. But only if enough people do it. That's why I wanted to put these videos out, was to try and just start a little bit of a movement, a little bit of a word of mouth. Talk to other people. If you're frustrated, and there's a lot of you frustrated, get together and go somewhere else or go and do something else. Just make sure that it's not empty threats or just empty complaints, because if all you're doing is just complaining, then nothing's going to change. Because businesses don't respond to complaints, they respond to the bottom line, their income. If you're paying, you must be enjoying or putting up with what's in front of you. And that is the only way you're going to make anything change is if you actually do something that hits where it hurts, which is the bottom line of that business. I'm not saying that you should be trying to rip off businesses. People that are doing their best, and people make mistakes or they don't get everything right the first time. If you're able to speak to them and they're willing to make changes, then that's one thing. But if you're talking to them and they just kind of fob you off, yeah, we'll look at that, in our next quarter, and you just never see anything change, then nothing's probably ever going to change until they have to change. So I hope that helps. In the next video, we're going to be talking about when you should join a gym. Now that can fall into quite a lot of categories. At what age should you join a gym? At what points in your training experience should you join a gym? Are you too old? Are you too young? We'll be going into all of that in the next video. So until then, have a think about everything we spoke about today. I really hope it makes a difference. Enjoy your week. Stay absolutely amazing, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.